100 Forgotten Things About America That Made the 1950s Special. Turn back time to the 1950s America, where life moved slowly with simple yet memorable moments. Do you remember the clinking sound of glass milk bottles every morning? Or the feeling of having to climb onto the roof to adjust the antenna to watch I Love Lucy? All of it has become a part of the memories that connect a whole generation. Today, we will explore wonderful memories that will amaze you and leave you with a sense of nostalgia. Affordable house prices. Recall the time in 1950 when the average house in America cost about $7,400. Can you imagine? It wasn't just a tiny box. You had a large yard, real wooden floors, and friendly neighbors who actually knew your name. Try comparing that to today. That amount isn't even enough for a down payment to buy an old storage shed in most major cities. The value of money. The average annual salary in 1950 was around $3,200. It might sound small compared to today, but what's amazing is that this amount was enough for a family to buy a house, raise children, and even go on annual vacations. It was a time when the value of money was truly high, and life became much more feasible and livable for the middle class. Surprisingly cheap gas prices. In 1955, a gallon of gas only cost 29 cents. That means with just $5, you could fill up your car's tank and even have money left over to buy a can of Coca-Cola and a pack of chewing gum. And did you know you didn't have to pump your own gas? A young man would come, clean your windshield for you while politely calling you sir. This is a service culture that has almost disappeared today. Chevy Bel Air. In 1955, the Chevy Bel Air officially rolled onto the streets and turned heads. With its two-tone paint, shiny chrome trim, and powerful V8 engine, it looked like it was speeding even when standing still. Owning a Chevy Bel Air was how you showed the world that you were living well. Mr. Potato Head. When Mr. Potato Head was first released, players were required to provide a real potato to serve as the main body for the toy. Parts such as eyes, nose, mouth, and ears would be attached directly to this potato. The plastic spud that we are familiar with today only appeared later. Strong trust. Unlocked doors. The world back then seemed slower, and trust between people was an invaluable asset. People didn't lock their house doors. You heard right. Unlocked doors. They trusted each other absolutely. If someone entered without knocking, it might just be a close neighbor returning something borrowed from the day before, or bringing over a freshly baked cake to share. When a family was away, house keys were often left with close neighbors to look after their pet cat, or simply to keep an eye on the house. Neighbors helping. Neighbors. That strong bond was most evident in important life moments. When a baby was born in the neighborhood, you wouldn't see complicated gift registries like today. Instead, neighbors would automatically bring hot, fragrant casseroles to help the new mother's family enjoy a good meal without worrying about cooking. Or they would bring a used but still very good baby crib. Self-repair spirit. Men in the 1950s were often very proud of their heavy steel toolbox. You wouldn't throw away an old item just because it was slightly broken. Instead, you would meticulously and patiently repair it yourself. And not only would you fix your own things, but you were also willing to help neighbors when their belongings broke down. The clanking of wrenches, the sawing of wood, the tapping of hammers, all created the familiar sounds of a neighborhood where everyone was a skillful handyman and willing to help each other. Doctor house calls. When you were sick, you just picked up the phone and called your family doctor. And the wonderful thing was, the doctor would personally come to your house to examine you. The image of the doctor entering the house with their familiar black bag and a thermometer would be an unforgettable memory for many. The convenience, personal attention, and close relationship between patient and doctor are things we rarely find today. Local eateries and friendly directions. In the neighborhood, there would be small grocery stores where everyone knew each other's names. You would walk in, buy a fresh loaf of bread, a bottle of milk, and the shopkeeper would give you your change with a warm smile. Without GPS or digital maps like now, getting lost was quite common. You just had to stop your car, ask someone for directions, and you would receive enthusiastic help, often with a pencil and a napkin to draw a map. Drive-in movie theaters. As the sun set and the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, a characteristic form of 1950s entertainment came alive: the drive-in movie theater. Families or couples would drive their cars in, find a suitable parking spot, then hook a small speaker onto the car window and enjoy the movie under the starry sky. The crackling of the speaker, the faint smell of popcorn, and the romantic, cozy atmosphere inside the car created an unforgettable cinematic experience. Neighbors gathering to watch color TV. When color television technology first appeared, it was a luxury, a symbol of modernity and prosperity. The first color TV was sold in 1954, but its price was very expensive, about $1,000, equivalent to nearly $10,000 today. Therefore, most families still used black and white TVs. But when someone in the neighborhood got a color TV, it was a big event. Half the neighborhood would flock to that lucky person's house, gathering around the large wooden box to marvel at colorful images for the first time. Ice cream trucks. And who could forget the familiar chime of the ice cream truck as it rolled down the street on hot summer afternoons? It was an unmistakable signal. Children playing would immediately run barefoot into the street, clutching their meager coins, running and yelling out the name of the treat they wanted to buy. The ice cream truck not only brought sweet desserts, but also joy, anticipation, and beautiful childhood memories. TV dinners. A revolutionary invention for busy homemakers arrived in 1953. The TV dinner. These convenient meals came in foil trays costing only 98 cents. They were quite convenient as they saved homemakers from worrying about washing dishes after the meal. It was a big step forward in simplifying family life, allowing members more time to gather together, enjoying meals in front of the TV, broadcasting their favorite show. Do you still remember the clinking sound of glass milk bottles on your doorstep every morning? Or did you prefer the convenience of TV dinners? Share your favorite 1950s memory with us in the comments below. Elvis Presley. Music also witnessed a revolution. Elvis Presley released his first single, That's All Right, in 1954. His bold performance style and controversial stage moves captivated young people and shaped a completely new music genre, rock and roll. Radio Flyer Wagon. Every child in the 1950s had or longed to have a red radio flyer wagon. This simple wagon was not just for carrying toys or pets, but could also be transformed into anything a child's imagination could conceive. A majestic pirate ship, an impenetrable fortress, or simply a means to carry groceries to help mom. It was a symbol of innocent childhood, of creative outdoor games. First Waffle House. In 1955, the first Waffle House opened in Georgia. Small, affordable, and open 24/7, it became a favorite destination for late-night meals, gatherings with friends, and a place filled with countless stories. No matter who you were, if you liked waffles and coffee, you had a seat. Glass bottle Coca-Cola. Another familiar sight was vending machines that only accepted 5-cent coins, dispensing Coca-Cola in glass bottles. No plastic, no artificial sweeteners, just the original refreshing taste of the beverage that had become an American icon. The sound of opening a glass bottle cap and the cool feeling of holding it were an indispensable part of the experience. Wall-mounted rotary phones. If you wanted to make a call in the 1950s, you would use a wall-mounted rotary phone. If you dialed the wrong number, you had to start over. Long-distance calls were a big deal, not something you did often. And especially, there was no absolute privacy if neighbors also picked up their phone on the same party line. Sometimes you could hear other people's conversations, and others could hear yours. Formal attire for flying. Today, flying seems quite common, but in the 1950s it was a special event. Men would wear formal suits while women wore gloves and hats. Flying was not just about moving from one place to another, but a luxurious experience, a high-class adventure. Station wagons. If your family had a station wagon, it meant you were doing very well. The whole family, sometimes crowded in the back without seatbelts, would set off together for picnics, endless summer vacations. It was a familiar image of large families sharing memorable moments together. Neighborhood barbershops. The barbershop was the center of the community. It was where men sat and told each other stories, whispering secrets under the steady snip of scissors. The smell of shampoo, the sound of clippers, and lively conversations created a unique and familiar space. Chrome kitchen appliances. Toasters, blenders, waffle makers in the 1950s were not just kitchen utensils. They were shining symbols of progress. Everything was chrome-plated. Your appliances looked like they belonged on a spaceship. And if something broke, Dad would open it up and fix it with a screwdriver and persistence. TV sign-off late at night. If you were a night owl in the 1950s, you would notice something interesting. Around midnight, the TV screen would go black after the national anthem was played. No late-night shows, no commercials stretching into the morning. It was a signal for everyone to go to bed and prepare for a new day. Car keys were optional. Hard to believe, right? Many trucks and even cars were sold without door locks. Owners often just left the key under the sun visor and no one touched it. Again, this speaks to the level of security and trust in society at that time, an innocence we can hardly achieve today. Sunday morning radio. Every Sunday morning, the radio only played gospel music and news. It was an indispensable part of a peaceful weekend morning, helping everyone relax and prepare mentally for the new week. Men wore hats. When leaving the house, men always wore hats. Fedoras, flat caps, pork pies. It was a given, part of daily attire. And they would tip their hats as a polite gesture when greeting someone. It was a culture, a style that has almost disappeared today. Women used metal curlers. For women, beauty rituals also had their own procedures. They curled their hair with metal rollers and then dried it under a huge helmet-shaped dryer. This image was very familiar in hair salons where women gathered, chatted, and beautified themselves. School desks with inkwells. Although ballpoint pens had become popular, school desks still had small holes for ink. They were like fossils of a bygone era, reminding of a time when fountain pens and ink bottles were the primary writing tools. Sunday church. Going to church on Sunday mornings was an indispensable weekly habit for many families. Everyone dressed in their best clothes, sat quietly listening, and together sought inner peace. This habit was deeply ingrained in people's lives and became part of the community's way of life, where families gathered and reinforced moral values. Yard games. Without phones or tablets, children spent most of their time playing outside. Yard games like horseshoes, jacks, marbles, jump rope, and lawn darts were popular recreational activities. It was a childhood connected to nature and active games. TV shows with moral lessons. TV shows at that time were often not just for entertainment, but also educational. There was always a clear moral lesson at the end of each episode, helping to shape the character and values of young audiences. Layaway. Before credit cards became popular, layaway was a common form of installment buying. You would pay a little bit at a time for the item you wanted until you had paid enough, then you could take the item home. It was a way for people to own large items without having to pay for them all at once. Metal car interiors. Car interiors back then were very different from now. There were no cup holders or airbags, and the steering wheel could get scorching hot under the sun. The interior was mainly made of metal, giving it a strong but also quite simple look. Soda fountain / lunch counter. Soda fountains or lunch counters were favorite destinations for young people. You would sit on red swivel stools, order a cherry Coke or a grilled cheese, and enjoy the lively, intimate atmosphere of the place. What from the 1950s do you wish would return most in today's world? Leave a comment and share your stories with us. Homemade sidewalk chalk. Children back then had their own way of turning the world around them into their playground. From any white stones they found, they would make their own chalk and turn the entire sidewalk into a giant drawing. It could be a fast racetrack, a familiar hopscotch game, or simply a spontaneous, colorful work of art. Creativity and the ability to utilize what was readily available were an indispensable part of innocent childhood. School lunch. School lunch also had its own flavor. There was no pizza or chocolate milk like today. Instead, it was often traditional and nutritious dishes like stew, beans, and mashed potatoes to give students enough energy for the next class. TV antenna on the roof. Do you remember the image of the whole family climbing onto the garage roof together, wrenches in hand, praying to adjust the antenna on the roof so the signal for the I Love Lucy show would be clear? It was a collective effort, a family bonding activity that we rarely experience today. Patience and a spirit of cooperation were necessary to enjoy your favorite show. Kids playing outside. The 1950s was a time when children truly lived their childhood outdoors. No smartphones, no tablets, no Wi-Fi, just baseball games with homemade bats, tireless bike rides, and only coming home when the streetlights started to turn on. Laughter, the clatter of bicycles, and scraped knees are cherished memories of a childhood full of freedom and adventure. Polio. Despite much joy and progress, the 1950s also had its own fears. Polio was one of them, a great obsession for families until Jonas Salk's vaccine was released in 1955. The arrival of the vaccine brought hope and changed the lives of millions, eliminating one of the most dreaded diseases of that time. Kids rode bikes without helmets. You might see a very familiar image from that time. Children riding bikes without helmets or elbow pads. Instead, there were only scraped knees and colorful ribbons fluttering from the handlebars. Freedom and a bit of daring were part of childhood, where children could explore the world without limits. Penny candy. True to their name, penny candies actually cost just 1 cent. Tootsie Rolls, Mary Janes, chewing gum. All lined up neatly behind the counter in large glass jars, waiting for tiny hands with coins. For kids, this was truly a small joy that made them excited. Kids delivering newspapers. Delivering newspapers was a common job for children to earn spending money. Rain or shine, newspaper boys diligently completed their work, bringing the latest news to every family. Hula hoop. An entertainment craze swept America in 1958 when the hula hoop was launched. Within 4 months, 25 million hula hoops had been sold. It quickly became a cultural phenomenon, bringing joy and physical activity to all ages. Homemade ice cream. Making ice cream at home was a special event, a much-anticipated family ritual. Everyone had to crank the heavy handle of the ice cream maker until their arms were tired, but the final result was delicious, refreshing ice cream made with everyone's own effort, bringing complete and memorable joy. Postcards. In the era before email or text messages, postcards were an important means of staying in touch. Every trip required postcards sent home, carrying simple but affectionate messages like, "Missing you, thinking of you." People carefully kept them as keepsakes. Direct dial long-distance service. From 1951, making long-distance calls became possible without going through an operator. This was a big step forward, bringing more convenience and privacy in communication. Connecting with distant relatives became easier than ever, bridging geographical distances. First open-heart surgery. In 1953, the first open-heart surgery was successfully performed with the help of a heart-lung machine. This was a significant milestone in medicine, opening the door for treating complex cardiovascular diseases and saving millions of lives. Microchip. In 1958, the microchip was invented. This invention laid the foundation for the development of computers and phones later, ushering in a new era of information technology. The microchip is a tiny but powerful brain, the heart of all modern electronic devices. First credit card. Diners Club, the first credit card, launched in 1950. This was a breakthrough in the financial industry, changing how people shopped and managed money. Credit cards brought convenience and flexibility, paving the way for modern consumer society. First nationwide live TV broadcast. In 1951, when President Truman spoke from the White House, the whole country watched the first nationwide live television broadcast. This was a historic moment, showing the power of television in connecting and informing the public, creating a shared event for the entire nation. First barcode patent. The first barcode patent was granted in 1952. The barcode looked like a target, and although not immediately widely used, it laid the foundation for modern inventory management and payment systems. Interstate Highway System. The Interstate Highway System was signed into law by President Eisenhower in 1956. This system made long-distance travel much less risky and more convenient. It changed how people traveled, boosted tourism and commerce, connecting regions across America. Did these inventions change your life? What impressed you most? Color TV, the polio vaccine, or making long-distance calls without an operator? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Rock and roll music. As mentioned before, rock and roll music didn't just appear but exploded in the 1950s. Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Elvis Presley, these artists were unlike anyone else on the radio. Their music was full of energy, vibrant rhythms, and bold lyrics, attracting millions of teenagers and creating a new cultural wave, challenging traditional norms. Housework was exercise. In an era when electronic devices were limited, housework was your form of exercise. Mowing the lawn with a push mower, splitting wood for the fireplace, hanging clothes outside, all required strength and physical activity. Most homes didn't have air conditioning. Summers in America could be very hot, but most families in the 1950s didn't have air conditioning. To cool down, they used fans, drank a cold glass of lemonade, and took naps on the porch, enjoying the natural breeze. Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe was not just a movie star, she was the definition of a movie star. She was an icon of beauty and glamour, but not just that. In 1955, she founded her own production company, a rare feat for women at that time. Marilyn was a pioneer, a strong woman who broke through social molds to assert herself. Most homes had one bathroom. It's hard to believe, but most homes back then only had one bathroom. Bathrooms were often decorated in soft pastel colors like pink, mint green, or light blue, with matching toilets, bathtubs, and tiles. American Bandstand Show. American Bandstand was a popular television show that launched nationally in 1957. It was a place where teenagers gathered, dancing in saddle shoes and poodle skirts, to the rhythm of the latest rock and roll songs. This show was an important part of youth culture, a place to express oneself and connect with friends. Community swimming pools. On hot summer days, community swimming pools were ideal places to cool down. The pool water often had a strong enough chlorine concentration to bleach hair, and lifeguards were always strict to ensure safety. It was a common space where everyone found joy and refreshment. Buying furniture. Buying furniture back then usually took place at local department stores. Customers would sit on every sofa, check the quality, and often be offered a cup of coffee while choosing. Customers received thorough advice and had many product choices. McDonald's. McDonald's had just begun franchising in the 1950s. The original menu had 9 items, including a 15-cent hamburger and 10-cent fries. No apps, no delivery. You walked up to the counter, paid with coins, and ate your burger on your car's hood, and it was perfect. Door-to-door salesman. Door-to-door visits by salesmen were very common. Vacuum cleaners, encyclopedias, brushes. These men wore suits, smiled broadly, and gave live demonstrations in your living room. Sometimes mom bought something, sometimes not, but she always offered them coffee. It was just good manners. Hawaii became the 50th state. In 1959, Hawaii officially became the 50th state of the United States. For many Americans, this island still seemed exotic and distant, an exotic destination to explore. This was a historic milestone, expanding the nation's borders. TVs were furniture. The TV was not just an electronic device, it was also an important piece of furniture in every home. Large wooden cabinets with legs and fabric speaker fronts placed prominently in the living room. When the TV broke, Dad would call a repairman to come to the house and carefully fix it. Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss released the book The Cat in the Hat in 1957. This book helped children learn to read in a fun and engaging way, becoming a classic in children's literature. Strict bank hours. Banks back then had very strict operating hours. If you didn't get there before 3 p.m. on Friday, you wouldn't have money until Monday. This required people to plan their finances more carefully, and there wasn't the flexibility of 24/7 banking today. Disneyland. Disneyland opened in California in 1955. Initially, it only had 18 rides and encountered many glitches, but it quickly became the happiest place on Earth. Disneyland is a symbol of joy, magic, and childhood dreams. Encyclopedias. Before the internet, encyclopedias were how you looked everything up. A salesman would come to your house with a complete set of Britannica, ready to convince you of the value of knowledge. It was a treasure trove of information, a valuable resource for every family. Canned food. Canned food was king in the 1950s. Spam, condensed soup, canned fruit, all were fast, cheap, and lasted a very long time. They were convenient solutions for everyday meals, especially when refrigerators and freezers were not yet truly widespread. Bar soap. Bar soap was the default for personal hygiene. Irish Spring, Lifebuoy, Dial came in cardboard boxes, smelled strong, and lasted forever. Every bathroom had a washcloth and a mysterious drawer full of half-melted pink and blue soap slivers stuck to the sink like glue. Brownie Camera. Kodak's Brownie Camera became extremely popular in the 1950s. Anyone could buy one and capture memorable moments of life. It democratized photography, allowing everyone to preserve memories easily. Ashtrays in every home. Every home had an ashtray, even if not everyone smoked. Made of glass, ceramic, sometimes integrated into furniture. Guests lit cigarettes at the dinner table, in cars, even in doctors' waiting rooms. No one thought anything of it. Cigarette smoke was simply part of the scene. Small screen TVs. Most TVs back then had screens the size of dinner plates and weighed like mini refrigerators. Although small and bulky, they were still the family's entertainment hub, bringing favorite shows in the evening. Bench seat in Ford F-100. The bench seat in the Ford F-100 was wide enough for 3 adults and a dog. This was a characteristic of car design at that time, prioritizing space and comfort for many passengers. Cigarette advertising. Cigarette advertising was everywhere, on TV, in magazines, even in doctors' offices. Some brands even blatantly claimed cigarettes were good for digestion. This shows the lack of understanding about the harmful effects of tobacco at that time, a stark contrast to today's strict regulations. Jell-O salad. The perplexing traditional dish Jell-O salad was in its heyday. Lemon-flavored Jell-O with cottage cheese, fruit suspended in the air as if defying gravity. A little shredded carrot could be added for crunch. No one liked it, but everyone ate a spoonful out of politeness, and yes, it was just tradition. Roller skates. Roller skates with metal wheels made a rumbling sound on the sidewalks as children played. They were often tied with a skate key worn around the neck. This was a popular toy, bringing joy and activity. Jukebox in diners. At diners, you would find a large jukebox. Insert a coin, select some songs, and watch the gears work, playing favorite tunes. The jukebox was the musical center of diners, creating a lively and fun atmosphere. Movie tickets. In 1950, a movie ticket cost only 48 cents. For less than $1, you had a comfortable seat, a bag of popcorn, and probably a cartoon before the main feature. You didn't need to book in advance, no need to scroll through trailers. You just showed up and picked whatever movie was playing, and it was usually very good. If you enjoyed this nostalgic journey back in time, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to Who Remembers, to not miss our next explorations, and share this video with friends who also grew up in this memorable decade. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next nostalgic journeys.